morning all, good afternoon, good evening all, welcome back to that YouTube. Today's video is going to be called Identity Thieves and the Stolen Legacy of Black Ancient Egypt. And the theme of today's video is called Identity Thieves. Now, this is another powerful video, so please stay tuned. On your mark, get set, go. Now, to my left hand side is actually a mummy. Now, this mummy to my left hand side is supposed to be Seti I. Now, Seti I is the last pharaoh in the Aberdeen's king list, and his name is not actually Seti I. We're going to give you his proper name as we move along the video. Now, this mummy to my left hand side is not actually Seti I. This is the mummy of Ptolemy I. Now, Ptolemy I was Alexander, one of Alexander's general. So he was the one who started the Ptolemaic dynasty. They were the first foreign ruler in Egypt at the time. So this mummy to my left hand side is not actually Seti I, but Ptolemy I. Now, when Egyptology discovered the mummy of Ptolemy I, it was in a very, very good condition. So what Egyptologists have done is, because the condition was so good, they've used this mummy to represent three different pharaohs. So this same mummy is being used for Seti I. This same mummy again is being used for Thutmose IV and also Ramses II, as you discover as we move down the video. Now, when Egyptology first discovered this mummy, it was in a very good condition, as we said, but there's been a lot of alteration that has been done to his mummy to make it look as if the mummy are different, but they're actually the same mummy. In this picture here to my left hand side, his hair is actually being shaved off. Now, you can also see that he's got two ears as well. But actually, Ptolemy's only got one ear because his right ear is actually missing. His right ear was actually cut off when he was captured in the war, but he managed to actually escape. So Ptolemy has only got one ear. The right ear is actually is missing. And to my right hand side, you can actually see a coin. This is actually his coin to my right hand side. And his reign period was from 305 BC to 284 BC. So he was the first foreign ruler of Egypt at the time. So to my left is the mummy of Ptolemy I, and to my right is his coins. And you can see in his coins, he's not depicted himself as an ancient Egyptian because they're from Macedonia, Greek. Now, to my left hand side is also the mummy of Ptolemy I, who was the first ruler of Egypt at the time. This mummy, when it was discovered, this is exactly how the mummy looks like. It's the same as the mummy that we just showed you previously, but this is how Ptolemy's mummy looked like when they first discovered it. This is why they've used this specific mummy to represent three different ancient Egyptian pharaohs, who are Seti I, Ramses II, and Thutmose IV. This mummy has been used to replicate three different pharaohs. Now you can see to the left hand side that his right ear is actually missing. This is exactly how his mummy looked like when it was first discovered. You see, this is why Egyptologists like to show off Ramses II, Thutmose IV, and Seti I as European, because what they've done is they've used Ptolemy mummy to infiltrate those pharaohs. To my right hand side is the bust also of Ptolemy the First, who was the first ruler of Egypt. Like we said, he reigned from 305 BC to 285 BC. And this is the bust to my right is actually the last bust that was made for him before he actually passed away. You can see both his mummy on the left hand side and his bust on the right hand side. You can actually see that his hair has been receding, so he was almost going bald. So at this time, when they actually found his mummy, he still had hair. So Egyptologists then shaved off his hair to give the appearance as if they're two different mummies. But actually, it's the same mummy that has been replicated for Shesi I, Thutmosis I, Thutmosis IV, and Ramses II, because the mummy looks European, but it's not actually, they're not actually ancient Egyptian, they're actually from Macedonia, Greek. And that is his bust to my right hand side. To my left hand side, this is also the mummy of Ptolemy I. Now, this mummy, because it's been exposed over the years, you can see that the mummy to my left hand side is actually disintegrated. But this is not Ramses II, but the mummy of Ptolemy I. And to my right hand side also is the same mummy that has been actually retouched as well. So he is not Ramses II. And like we said, Ramses II is not actually his name. We'll give you his proper name. But this again to my left hand side, this mummy to my left hand side is Ptolemy I. And also to my right hand side is also the same mummy that have actually been touched. Sometimes they'll just glue hair onto the skull, and sometimes they'll just leave the skull shaved. But what they've been doing is they've been retouching the same Ptolemy I mummy, because they've used him to represent three different pharaohs, because the mummy looks European. But they're not ancient Egyptians, they're from Macedonia, Greek, and they were the first foreign ruler in Egypt at the time. And again, to my left hand side is the same Ptolemy I mummy as well. And we have one to the left and then we have one at the bottom as well. So both are the same Ptolemy I. That is his mummy. So Egyptologists have just been trying to retouch and remodel some of the pictures to make it look as if the mummies are different, but they're the same. The picture at the bottom was exactly how Ptolemy looks like when they first discovered his mummy. It was in a very, very good condition. This is the reason why Egyptologists have used it to represent three different pharaohs, but he's not. The mummy to my left hand side is not actually Ramses II. And like we said, Ramses II is not his name. If you haven't watched our previous video, we're going to tell you what his name is, but his name is not actually Ramses II. And then on the right hand side also is the same mummy of Ptolemy I. So when the mummy was first discovered in its original form, the right ear was missing, and that's exactly how the mummy should have looked like. That's the one to the left at the bottom. But what Egyptologists have done is they remodel the right ear, they make the left ear missing. Or sometimes they remodel the left ear, they make the right ear missing, to confuse viewers that the mummies are three separate mummies, but they're actually the same mummy, Ptolemy I. So you can see at the bottom, to the left hand side, that is exactly how the mummy looks like when it was first discovered, because the right ear was missing. And that's how it should be, because actually in real life, when Ptolemy was still living, his right ear was cut off. Like we said, there was a war in which he was captured and his right ear got cut off, but he managed to escape. So the mummy to my left hand side is Ptolemy the First, and the mummy also to my right hand side is the same Ptolemy the First Sota. So this mummy to my right hand side and also the mummy to my left hand side and at the bottom has got nothing whatsoever to do with Ramses II. This is actually the mummy of Ptolemy the First, who was the first ruler, the first foreign ruler of Egypt. Here you can see in one of the YouTube channels, we believe there was actually a reconstruction of Ramses II. But as you can see quite clearly, this is not actually Ramses II, but what they've done is they've made a reconstruction of Ptolemy the First. So this reconstruction is actually for Ptolemy the First and not Ramses II. You can see quite clearly that the reconstruction actually looks exactly like Ptolemy the First, because what Egyptologists have done is they discovered the mummies of the Ptolemies, and then what they did is they moved them into various Egyptian dynasties, especially the 18th dynasty of Egypt. That's exactly what they did. And now you can see to my left hand side, you can see the reconstruction, which is supposed to be that of Ramses II. But like we said, this is not actually the reconstruction of Ramses II, but actually Ptolemy the First. And on the right hand side is his bust. That is actually Ptolemy the First. That's his bust. And you can see at the right hand side that the right ear is missing, just like when they first discovered his mummy, which did not have the right ear. The right ear was actually missing. So his reign period was from 305 BC to 285 BC. So this is not Ramses II, but Ptolemy the First. To the left is the reconstruction, and to the right is his bust. Now, to my left hand side is a symbol. Now, this symbol is used frequently to represent a pharaoh inside a cartouche, to represent a pharaoh's name inside a cartouche. To the left hand side, this figure does not mean Ma'at. This is why we've actually put it here as a standalone figure for you, so that you can see. This figure represents Are, A-R-E, in ancient Egyptian language. And Are means a chief, a principal, or an elderly person. You can see to my left hand side, this is actually an Ifa priestess. You can see quite clearly that she's got a bird feather on her forehead. So the ancient Egyptian spiritual religion is known as Ifa, I-F-A. So this symbol to my left hand side has got nothing whatsoever to do with Ma'at. As we said, the religion Ma'at was a fabrication and does not exist in the history of ancient Egypt. To the right hand side is actually the name, the cartouche name of Seti I. And Seti I is not actually his name. His cartouche name is just next to his bust, and that is him on the right hand side. You can see quite clearly that Egyptologists have hacked off his nose. His cartouche reads Mi. We have the Mi, which was first introduced by Meni, who was the first pharaoh of the first dynasty of Egypt, and then we have Ra at the top. So his first name reads Mira, M-E-R-A, which means in ancient Egyptian language, I bought it. In the middle, we have the Are figure. But the Are figure is used in conjunction with Ra at the top. So we start first, we don't pronounce it Arare, which is spelled Arera. It's not pronounced like that in ancient Egyptian language. So what you do is you start with the A first, then you insert the Ra in, which is the sun symbol in the middle. Then it finishes with Re. So it becomes Arare, which means oneself. So his name is not actually Sheti the First. His proper name is Mira, which means aborted, Arare, which means oneself. And that is his bust on the right hand side. You can see Egyptologists, they've hacked off his nose. So he looks nothing like Ptolemy the First Sota that has been used to represent 3 separate pharaohs. And to my left hand side, you can actually see a cartouche name. Now, this is the cartouche name for Thutmose the Fourth, and Thutmose the Fourth is not actually his name. And then on the right hand side, this is exactly how the pharaoh looks like, exactly. So to the left hand side is his cartouche name. His cartouche name, as you can see, we have the Mi just below the sun sign, and then we have the sun sign above. So that represents Mira, which means I bought it. And then just below the Mi sign, we have the ant, which represents Beru, perfect rise, plus the sun above, that represents Berura, which means perfect rising sun in ancient Egyptian language. And at the bottom, we have 3 lines, which represents Aton. Aton basically means a returning place. Because back in ancient Egypt, he comes from a family of storyteller. So Aton basically is related to storytelling. It means a returning place. And then on the right hand side is exactly how the pharaoh looks like. And he's actually the pharaoh whose face is on the Sphinx. As we said in our previous episode, the Sphinx was the Black Panther. He was the one who changed it to his face. And he is number 72 in the Abydos King list. And he looks nothing like the mummy that's been presented by Egyptologists as Thutmose the Fourth. He's actually the Joseph. The pharaoh to my right hand side is actually the Joseph of the Bible that was stolen and inserted into the Bible. This is actually how he looks like. He's the dreamer known as Otito Moshe back in ancient Egypt. Otito means truth, Moshe means thank you. And the reason why they called him Otito Moshe was because he comes from the Moshe family. You know, the first pharaoh of the 18th dynasty of Egypt was also known as Moshe. So he comes from that line and that generation of Moshe. That is why they call him Otito Moshe back in ancient Egypt. And to my left hand side is his cartouche name, and to the right hand side, that is exactly how he looks like. So his name is not actually Thutmose the Fourth, but his name is Mira, which means I bought it, Wirura, which means perfect rising sun, and then you got the 3 lines at the bottom, which stands for Aten, which means a returning place. So he looks nothing like the mummy of Ptolemy the First Sota. This is the reason why I've actually called this episode Identity Thieves, because that's exactly what it is. They're identity rogues. Now, to the left hand side is actually, to the far left, is the mummy of Ptolemy the First. This is exactly how the mummy of Ptolemy the First looks like when it was first unwrapped. So it was in a very, very good condition. And just next to the mummy is actually his bust. Like we said, this is the pharaoh that has been used to represent Thutmose the Fourth, but it's not actually Thutmose the Fourth, but Ptolemy the First, who was the first foreign ruler of Egypt between the period of 305 BC to 285 BC. They're also known as the Laggid dynasty, and they're from Macedonia. They're Greek. They're not ancient Egyptian. And on the right hand side is the real pharaoh. You can see him that is actually the face. His face is that of the Sphinx, and he's number 72. In the Abydis King list, his cartouche name reads Mira, which means aborted, Wewura, which means perfect rising sun, Aton, which means a returning place. This is why we've called this specific video Identity Thieves, because that's exactly what it is. They're trying to pretend as if they're ancient Egyptians, but they're not. So they've dug up the mummies of the Ptolemies, and then they've put them into various Egyptian dynasties. That is what they've done. To my left, this is actually the bust of Amenhotep III, who is actually the son of Thutmose IV, and that's not their names. So this is his son. Here to my left hand side, you can see that Egyptologists have hacked off his nose and tried to hack off his lips as well. You can see his nose are big and his lips are also big as well. So this is aka Amenhotep III, and on the right hand side is exactly how he looks like. And we've put his cartouche name next to his bust. His cartouche name reads, at the bottom we have the bowl, which stands for Mimo, M-I-M-U in ancient Egyptian language. So Mimo means I know, and then at the top we've got Ra, and in the middle we have the Are figure, which stands for chief, elderly person, or principal, but is used in conjunction with Ra at the top. So that represents Arare. So his name is Mimo. I know, Arare, oneself. So it translates to I know oneself. That is what the cartouche actually reads. And that is a Yoruba language and not any other language. And to the left is his bust, which his nose and his lips has been hacked off. And to the right, that is exactly how he looks like. And he is the son of the pharaoh, whose face is that of the Sphinx, known as Mira, Wewura, Aton. And this pharaoh, to my right hand side, he's actually the father of Aki, Wewura, Aton, known to the world as Akhenaten. This is his father here. You can also see that he's actually got big lips as well, just like Akhenaten, known to the world as Akhenaten. So you can see that's why we've actually called this specific video Identity Thieves, because that's exactly what it is. And again, you can see to the left hand side, we've actually put the symbol. We put the Are symbol so that you don't have any delusions. Now, that symbol means Are. Like we said, it's got nothing to do with Ma'at. It stands for Are, which is spelled A-R-E, which is used sometimes in conjunction with Ra. Now, Are means it's a standalone figure, but it's used in conjunction with Ra when it's used inside a cartouche name to represent the name of a pharaoh. It means a principal, a chief, or an elderly person in ancient Egyptian language, and has got nothing whatsoever to do with Ma'at. And on the right hand side is aka Ramses II. You can see he looks nothing like the mummy that is being presented by Egyptology as him. He's not. That mummy is the mummy of Ptolemy I. You can see his cartouche name to the right hand side, and Ramses II is not actually his name, because his cartouche name reads, we begin first with the figure. We have that figure, which is the Anubi figure, which stands for A-N-U, Anu, which means merciful. Then to the right of Anu, we have the Are figure, but is used in conjunction with Ra at the top, which translates to Arare, which means I know myself, I know oneself. Then we have the water sign at the bottom, which stands for Ni, N-I, which means to exist. And then we have the Ra, which translates to Iran, which means generation of. And then at the top of the Ne sign, which is the water sign, then we have Sheti. So he's telling you that he comes from a generation of Tasheti, which is in Nubia, because Ta means to sell, She means to do or make, and Ti means to perform in ancient Egyptian language. So his name is not actually Ramses II. His real name is Anu Arare Iran Sheti. Anu means merciful, Arare means oneself, Iran means generation of, and then Sheti, which goes back to the old dynasty of Egypt known as Tasheti in Nubia. And you can see to the right hand side, his nose also has been hacked off, like most statues have been. And again, to the left hand side is aka Ramses II's cartouche name, which reads Anu Arare Iran Sheti. And to the right hand side is a statue of him sitting down, and just by the side is his cartouche name written on it. So you can see quite clearly that it looks nothing like the mummy that is being presented as him. It's not him. This is the pharaoh here to my right hand side, and as his name suggests, it's not an Arab or Anglo-Saxon name. That cartouche name is a Yoruba name, which reads Anu Arare Iran Sheti. That's exactly what it is. To my left hand side, you can see again, that's the cartouche name of aka Ramses II, which reads Anu, which means merciful, Arare, which means oneself, Iran, which means generation of, and then he uses Sheti, which goes back to Tasheti in Nubia. And on the right hand side is his statue, and then just at the bottom we just put a zoom in so that you can actually see that is him, because his cartouche is actually written at the bottom of his statue. And to the left is the mummy of Ptolemy I, which is actually been remodeled or retouched. So this is the same mummy that's been used to represent Sheti I, Thutmose IV, and Ramses II. And on the right hand side is the real pharaoh, aka Ramses II, whose cartouche name reads Anu Arare Iran Sheti. You can see him quite clearly on the right hand side with his cartouche name that he looks nothing like the mummy on the left hand side. Like we said, the mummy on the left hand side is Ptolemy I, which has actually been retouched. So, like we said in our episode, this is why we've named this specific content identity thieves, because that is exactly what it is. So we're just giving you examples after example after example. And to my left hand side is actually the mummy of Cleopatra VII. You can see our mummy quite clearly. She was actually bitten twice by a snake because her cheek, she's got a swollen cheek. And if you investigate the actual mummy itself, you can actually see the bite. She was actually bitten on her nose, on the top of her nose, and she was actually bitten as well on her cheek. So she was actually bitten twice. So this is the mummy of Cleopatra VII. She was the last queen of the Lagid, the Ptolemaic dynasty, and she ruled from 51 BC to 30 BC before she died. So she was actually the last queen of Egypt before she actually died and passed away. And to my right hand side is her coins. So you can see the coins. If you look at the coins and you look up, they're very similar. So that's her coins to the right hand side, and to the left hand side, that is our mummy. And for those who haven't watched any of our episodes, we'd like to state that Cleopatra is actually from Macedonia. she comes from the line, the generation of the Ptolemaic. So she wasn't black, or was she mixed race? She was a full-fledged European, Greek, Macedonian queen. So she wasn't black. To the left is her mummy, and to the right is her coins. And they were never, because they never depict themselves as ancient Egyptians, because they're not. Because on the right hand side is her coins, as you can see quite clearly. So this is Cleopatra VII, mummy to my left hand side, and to the right hand side is her coins. And again to my left hand side, this is again the mummy of Cleopatra VII, who was the last queen of Egypt, who reigned from 51 BC to 30 BC. So to my left hand side is the mummy of Cleopatra VII. It's exactly the same mummy as what we showed you in our previous section, but this mummy has been retouched a little bit. So like we said, the mummies of the Ptolemaic dynasty, some of the mummies of the Ptolemaic dynasties have been found. Some they couldn't use because they were just, they disintegrated. They couldn't use them. But the mummy of Ptolemy I and the mummy of Cleopatra VII was in very good condition. So that is why they inserted them into various ancient Egyptian dynasties. But they're not ancient Egyptians. So for those who want to know exactly how Cleopatra looks like, this is the mummy of Cleopatra to my left hand side, which has actually been retouched, but this is her to my left hand side, 100%. This is Cleopatra VII. This is her here. Now, to my left hand side is actually the bust of Nefertiti, whose real name is Nefertiti. And then to the far left, you can also see a woman next to the bust. This bust was actually fabricated by Ludwig Bogart, who was a German Egyptologist. It was actually fabricated by him in 1912. To the far left is actually his wife. So what he's done is he's actually fabricated the bust to look like his wife. On the right hand side is actually the real bust of Nefertiti, known to the world as Nefertiti, and next to the bust is her cartouche name. We made that clear. If you haven't seen our previous episode called Ancient Egyptian Pharaohs, I suggest that you watch that because that gives you more insight into the issue. So on the right hand side is the bust of Nefertiti, known to the world as Nefertiti, and next to her is her cartouche name. We gave you a translation of her cartouche name in our previous episode, but we'll do it again here today. So we have in the middle, we have like a Y-shaped sign. That's a catapult, and that catapult in ancient Egyptian language means Ofa, which is spelled O-F-A. That's what Ofa basically means, a catapult. Now with a catapult, you have to pull it until it hits its target. The word until in ancient Egyptian language means Titi. That's where her name comes from, which means until. Okay? So the catapult represents T-I-T-I, which means until. Then we have the ant, which stands for Beru, perfect rise. And then we have the sun, which means Berura, which means perfect rising sun. Okay? Then we need to come back to the bottom. So we have the water sign, which means Ni and I, and then we have the Ra, which translates to Iran, which means generation of. And then we have the music instrument to the left hand side of the to the right hand side of the cartouche, which stands for Ifa, not Nefa. It stands for Ifa in ancient Egyptian language. So her full name is Titi, which means until, Berura, which means perfect rising sun, Aton, because we've got the 3 lines as well. Aton, which means a returning place, and then finally she uses generation of Ifa. And to the right hand side, that is exactly how she looks like and that is our cartouche just next to her. So again, this is another representation of identity theft. Now, to my left hand side is supposed to be Oremhem, or an image of Oremhem. We made that clear in our previous episodes, Ancient Egyptian Pharaoh. Excuse me, Ancient Egyptian Pharaoh. We made that clear that Oremhem is actually a fabricated and a fictitious pharaoh in order to hide the true identity of Akhenaten, known to the world as Akhenaten. And then to the right hand side is, to the far right, is a bust of him. That's exactly how he actually looks like. And next to him is two cartouche names. You can see his cartouche name. The first cartouche reads me. We've got the me sign, which was first introduced by many. We've got the ni sign, which also was first introduced by many, and then we've got the bird feather. So his name is Many Okun. Many means man or an established one. Okun means strength, ability, and power. This is the first cartouche we're talking about here. And at the bottom, you can see the bowl as well. Yeah, which means Mimo, which means I know. And then the second cartouche, which is this famous cartouche, you got the hand sign, which stands for Akin, A-K-I-N, which means brave. We have the ant, which stands for Beru, perfect rise. We've got the sun, which means Berura, perfect rising sun. At the bottom, we have the ni sign, which is the water sign, which means ni, which means to exist. And then we've got the ra, which stands for Nira, but you actually pronounce it as Iran, which means generation of. And then in the middle, just above the ni sign, we have the Sheti. So he's telling you, in fact, Akhenaten, known to the world as Akhenaten, was the first to use the sign Sheti inside his cartouche name. So as we mentioned in our previous episode, he was never a heretic king. That story was entirely fabricated by Egyptologists. So to the left is a fabricated pharaoh, and to the right, this is the actual real pharaoh. So his cartouche reads Akin Berura Atom, because we got the three lines Atom, Iran, generation of Sheti. So that's it. This is those are his two cartouche, and that's exactly how it looks like on the right hand side. This is another example that we showed you here of identity theft. I mean, it just goes on and on and on, but we're just giving you a few examples here. We can go on from the first dynasty of Egypt actually until when Alexander got there, that the entire ancient Egyptian dynasty was Black African, and the language is Yoruba 100%, as we've identified in a lot of our contents. Now, to the left hand side, you can actually see an image. This is supposed to be a pale image of Tutankhamun, known to the world as Tutankhamun. You can obviously tell that this is a fabricated image, a pale image of him. On the right hand side is actually the real pharaoh, known as aka Tutankhamun. You can also see two cartouches next to him. You can see him on the right hand side. He's jet black because of the sun. That's exactly how he looks like, and we identified in our previous episode. If you haven't seen that, we advise that you watch it. We made it clear that Tutankhamun, known to the world as Tutankhamun, was never a boy pharaoh. That story was fabricated entirely by Egyptologists. He actually got on the throne at the age of 28 years old. Now, pay close attention to the two cartouches. We're going to start with the first cartouche first. You can actually see the first cartouche that his name is very similar or the same as his dad, because his dad, aka Akhenaten, is also known as Many Okun. So Tutankhamun, known to the world as Tutankhamun, also has the name Many Okun as well, because you can see the first cartouche, you got the me sign, which was first introduced by Many, you got the ni sign, and then you got the bird feather. So Many means man or established one, Okun means strength, ability, and power. And also, you can also see the two calabashes as well. You can see one, then you can see the bird, which represents Ku, which means to die. And then he's got another calabash just at the bottom of the bird. So his name also is Tutu Ku in the first cartouche. So not only has he got the name Meni Okun, but also has the two calabashes as well. If you actually look at the first cartouche name, so you have two, another two, which means Tutu, and then in the middle you have the bird, which represents Ku. So his name is also Tutu Ku. Can you see? And then the second, his second cartouche name, we have the bowl, which means Mimo, Mimu, which means I know. Then you got the ant, which stands for Beru. You got the sun, so together means Berura, which translates to perfect rising sun. And then it's got the three lines, which means Aten, which has got nothing whatsoever to do with a religion called Aten, which was entirely fabricated by Egyptologists. We made that clear in our previous video. If you haven't watched that, I suggest you watch that as well, because we made a long episode on that. So on the left hand side is the fabricated image of aka Tutankhamun, and on the right hand side is the real pharaoh and his image, and this is exactly how he looks like. And you can see that his cartouche name is very similar to his dad, because his dad, known as Akhenaten to the world, also bears the name Meni Okun as well, and so does Tutankhamun, aka Tutankhamun. He also bears the name Meni Okun, because you can see it. You can see the first cartouche that has got Meni Okun in it, and it's also got the calabash, just one above, one below, and then the bird. So Tutu Ku also is his name as well. So this is another example of identity theft by Anglo-Saxon and Arabs. You can see it quite clearly. Here again to my left hand side is actually the cartouche name of aka Tutankhamun. Because what happened was, when he took the throne, later on during his reign, he went back to using the original family name, which means Moshe, thank you, which is represented by the head of the Black Panther. So, excuse me, to my left hand side is also the cartouche name of aka Tutankhamun during his reign. You can see the two cups at the bottom, which represents Tutu, T-U-T-U. Yeah. Then we've got the me sign, which was first introduced by Meni, and then we've got the Ra at the top. So his name is Mira, Tutu Mira, and then in the middle we have the Black Panther sign, which represents Moshe, which means thank you. So this is the other cartouche of aka Tutankhamun, who is actually Ramses I. He is number 75 in the Abydos king list. So Tutu means cold, Mira means I bought it, Moshe means thank you. And then on the right hand side, this is the pharaoh himself. You can actually see that his nose also has been hacked out. And here in this bust, he was over 30 years old. So he was never a boy king. You can see quite clearly that even his bust, his nose has been hacked out as well, because most of the busts of ancient Egyptian, they always go for the nose so that they can remodel it. But no matter how, if you look very clearly, he's black, he's an Asian Yoruba king. To my right hand side, this is another image of aka Tutankhamun, and then to the left is the cartouche name of him when he got on the throne later on during his reign. So he went back to using the name Moshe, That's what happened. Now, here again to my left-hand side is a fabricated female pharaoh by Egyptologists known as Hatshepsut. Now, in the history of ancient Egypt, there has been no female pharaoh called Hatshepsut. It was actually fabricated again in order to hide the true identity of the real pharaoh. On my right hand side is actually a depiction of the real pharaoh, and next to him is actually his cartouche name. If you look inside this cartouche, you can see an axe. That axe represents Akhe, so that's his first name. Akhe means an axe in ancient Egyptian language. Then we have the ants, which means Beru, and then we've got the sun, so that translates to Berura, which means perfect rising sun. And then at the bottom we have the Ni sign, which is the water sign. So his name is Akhe Ni Berura. That's his name. Or you can even translate it as Akhe Iran, generation of Berura, which means perfect rising sun. So Akhe means axe, Iran means generation of, and then Berura, which means perfect rising sun. So again, this is another fabrication by Egyptologists. There was no female pharaoh in the history of ancient Egypt known as Hatshepsut. This is the pharaoh. This is the real pharaoh's name to my right hand side. And here is his complex. This is actually his complex here. He was the one who actually built this complex. So this complex wasn't built by any fabricated pharaoh called Hatshepsut, but it was actually built by Akhe Berura Ni, or you can translate it as Akhe Ni Berura, or Akhe Iran Berura. Akhe means axe, Berura means perfect rising sun, Ni means to exist. So if you look very closely, his name is also written in front of his complex. So there was no female pharaoh called Hatshepsut. That story was entirely fabricated by Egyptologists. This is his complex here. It's owned by him because his name is written on the actual complex. Now, to my left hand side is actually the real female pharaoh known as Isis. But her real name is actually Isin, and she is the mother of aka Horus, and she is the only female pharaoh in the history of ancient Egypt. She's the first and the only female pharaoh in the history of ancient Egypt. It just so happened that because her husband Osiris, aka Osiris, was murdered, and Olorun, aka Horus, was still very young, that's how she became pharaoh. It was almost like a divine timing for them. So she is seen, aka known as Isis, is the only female pharaoh in the history of ancient Egypt. And to the right hand side is her cartouche name. So she's the only one. And again, here to my left hand side, you can actually see Olorun, aka Horus. Next to him is Osiris, aka Osiris. And then next to Osiris is his wife, Isin, aka Isis. So you can see three of them. Now, these are the three Holy Trinity, the original three kings. Why? Because all three became pharaohs. Can you see? So Olorun became a pharaoh, Osiris became a pharaoh, and Isin, aka Isis, also became a pharaoh as well. So, like we said in our previous section, Isin, aka Isis, is the only female pharaoh in history. Because normally when pharaoh get onto the throne, their wife become queen. So pharaoh really is for male. And the only reason why Isi became a pharaoh was because her husband was murdered by Ashe, aka Set, during those times. And on the right hand side is their cartouche name. So the first cartouche name is the cartouche of Olong, aka Horus, who is the fifth pharaoh of the first dynasty of Egypt, and the cartouche reads Shepataki. Next to his cartouche is the cartouche of his father, who is also known as Ita, which means outside. So his name is Okuku, Tu Okuku, Ita, Tu Okuku. Okuku basically means darkness in ancient Egyptian language. He is Osiri, aka Osiris, and he is the fourth pharaoh of the first dynasty of Egypt. And next to his cartouche name is the cartouche of Isin, who is popularly known around the world as Isis. So you can see, but Egyptologists have made them out to be myth. But they're not actually myth, they're actually real humans that lived. Can you see? So they've given us a fabricated person while they've turned our real history into myth, because they're not myth. You know, we made it clear that Olong, aka Horus, is the fifth pharaoh of the first dynasty of Egypt, and we showed you exactly how he looks like. So is Osiri, aka Osiris, and Isin, aka Isis. So these are the three stars here. This is their cartouche to my right hand side, and this is a representation of them to my left hand side. So they're not actually myth, but they're actually people who actually existed. But Egyptologists have turned them into myth. That's why they always say mythology. They always use words like mythology, but there's no myth there. These are actually true, original characters, real characters, real people that existed and ruled and were gods as well. To my left is a cartouche. This is actually the cartouche of aka Khafre. Now, Khafre is not actually his name. And then to the right hand side, this is exactly how the pharaoh looks like. And he is not the pharaoh whose face is that of the Sphinx. It's not him. You know, that Sphinx was originally a Black Panther. It was later changed to the head of a pharaoh by the 8th pharaoh of the 18th dynasty of Egypt, known as Otitomushe. And his other name is also Berura Baton. He is aka Thutmose IV. So his face is that of the Sphinx. Here is the pharaoh. This is another pharaoh to my right hand side, aka Khafre. But Khafre is not actually his name. And if you look closely to the right hand side, you can also see that his nose has also been hacked off as well. To the left is his cartouche name. We have the bird. The bird represents Ku, Ku, which means to die. And then above we have Ra. So his first name is Kura. Kura in ancient Egyptian language means somebody who's brave and stubborn. That's what Kura means. And in the middle we have a snake. That snake means Ere, which is spelled E-R-E. It's a boa snake. Now, the reason he's actually the first in the history of ancient Egypt to use Ere, which is the boa snake. And the reason being was because when this pharaoh was actually a really funny character. When he was young, he used to carry a lot of snakes with him. He had like 2 bags, one to the left hand side, one to the right hand side. So he would just put the snakes in there, but some he would leave them so that people can see. So when he's walking on the street, even as a very young boy, everybody used to run because they were afraid of the snakes that he used to carry around with him. But the thing is, boa snakes are not poisonous, you see. So they're not really poisonous, but a lot of people didn't know that back then. So he used to use it to make people frightened. So he's the first ere in ancient Egyptian history. So his cartouche to the right, to the left hand side reads Kura ere. Kura means somebody who's stubborn. Ere is just a boa snake. And to the right hand side is the bust of him, where his nose has also been hacked up as well. So his face is not that of the Sphinx. And again, to the left hand side is the cartouche name of aka Khafre, which reads Ku. We have the bird, which means Ku, Ku, which means to die, and then we have Ra at the top. So his first name is Kura, which means somebody who's basically strong and stubborn. And in the middle is the boa snake, which represents Ere, which is spelled E-R-E. And to my right hand side, you can see him just sitting down. That's Kura Ere as well. That's him on my right hand side, because if you investigate, his cartouche is written on his statue. You can see quite clearly, even if you look closely, his nose has been hacked out as well. Just like with the previous bust we showed you, where the nose and his ears as well have been hacked off. But here he's still got his ears, but his nose has been hacked off. That is him just sitting down. And if you investigate, just below him is his cartouche name written Kura Ere. That's him. To my right hand side, Yoruba Pharaoh as well. And again, to my left hand side, there's actually, to the left is a cartouche name. Now, this cartouche is supposed to be for a pharaoh called Sneferu, but this cartouche is not actually that of Sneferu. This cartouche actually belongs to Khufu Ifa, and to the right hand side is exactly how he looks like. You can see to the left hand side we have a bird. That bird, just like his father as well, represents Ku. Yeah? Then above the bird we have like an instrument which curves to the right hand side. It's actually a cloth. And the reason why they call that instrument Fu, Fu Fu, is because you got to squeeze it. When you wash a cloth, you have to squeeze the cloth to actually bend it. So that's why that cloth is a cloth which bends to the right hand side, which looks like an instrument, but it's actually a cloth, because you have to squeeze the cloth in order to, like Fu, when you're squeezing the cloth, when you wash a cloth back in ancient Egypt, when they wash it, then they got to use their hand to squeeze it to remove the water out of the actual cloth. That's how they used to dry the cloth back in ancient Egypt. So his first name is, the bird represents Ku, which means die, Ku, and then you have the cloth with it like an instrument bending to the right hand side, which means Fu. So his first name is Khufu. And then you have the ancient Egyptian Yoruba music instrument, which is used to represent Ifa. So his name is Khufu Ifa. So he's not Sneferu, but his name is actually Khufu Ifa. And to the right hand side, that's him. And that solar shape does not belong to Khufu Ifa. That solar shape is actually the solar shape of Olorun, aka Horus. This is why we called this episode Identity Theft, because they're just using all kind of fabrications to confuse people. Here to my left hand side is actually the bust of the first pharaoh of the 18th dynasty of Egypt, aka Ahmosis I. And next to him is actually his cartouche name. Again, as you can see on my left hand side, his nose has been hacked out, normal style. So his name is Tutu. You can see the two cup, Tutu. And then we have the bowl, which means Mimo, M-R-M-U. Then you have the Ra, which means Mimora, I know myself. And then in the middle, he uses the Black Panther sign. He was actually the first to use the Black Panther sign to represent Moshe, which means thank you. So you can see quite clearly that, Egyptology is just one big identity fraud. That's all it is. And again, to my left hand side, you can see this is another pharaoh. If you look quite closely to the left hand side, that's him. You can see Egyptologists, they've hacked off his nose as well. And to the right hand side is his cartouche name, which reads, we have the Me sign, which was first introduced by Many, who was the first pharaoh of the first dynasty of Egypt. We have the Ni sign as well, which is the water sign, which was also introduced by Many, who was the first pharaoh of the first dynasty of Egypt. So his first name is Meni, which means a man or an established one. Then we have the Ka, which means to read, to reckon, etc. And then we have the Ra at the top. So his name is Meni Kara. You can see quite clearly that that name is a Yoruba name. It's got nothing to do with Arab or Anglo-Saxon or anything of that nature. And how do we know it's him? Because on the left-hand side, his cartouche name is written on his belt. It's there, it's written there on his belt. This is how we know that his name is Meni, which means a man or an established one, and Kara, which is his surname, which means straightforward in ancient Egyptian language. You can see it quite clearly. So that's him. And here to the left-hand side, you can actually see there's no point actually even mentioning what the pharaoh's name are. To the left-hand side, you can see quite clearly right here, through jealousy and envy, that Egyptologists have hacked off his nose. To the right-hand side, you can see exactly the same thing they've done to this bust as well. They've actually hacked off his nose. And if we go on to the next picture as well, to my left-hand side, you can also see that they've also hacked off his nose as well. And then to the right-hand side, you can also see an image that they've also hacked off their nose as well. And then even we'll show you another one to the left-hand side. They've hacked off this pharaoh's nose. To the right-hand side, in fact, this one, they were so jealous of him that they just sliced him in two in a jealous rage. So you can see quite clearly that these people have been very envious and jealous because black people created a very, very fantastic and fascinating civilization. They're still jealous till today. And again, to my left-hand side, I mean, look at these pharaohs. To my left-hand side here, the first one, his nose has been hacked off. The second one, his nose has also been hacked off. The third one, down the bottom, his nose has been hacked off. The fourth one, his nose has been hacked off as well. You can see the serious jealousy and envy. To my right-hand side, you can also see the first pharaoh, the second pharaoh, the third picture, the fourth picture, all 8, their noses have been hacked off. And we've got examples like this. We can even show you more than 200 statues that their nose have been hacked off. And if you look very closely, you can see quite clearly the black African features. So the jealousy was really immense, and it's still immense till date. Here again, you can actually see 2 pharaohs. You can actually see them with really big braids on their head, and you can also see their black African features. I mean, because their nose were so big, they were just so annoyed that they didn't even bother just hacking off their noses. Just thought, you know what, we're just going to hack off their face entirely. You can see both images. You can see the statue, that they're African looking, they're black, and they are ancient Yoruba kings. But through jealousy and envy, they've basically destroyed and hacked off their faces in a jealous rage. You can see it quite clearly. Look at it closely. You can see their African features, even with the statue's face being hacked off. Again, you can see to my left-hand side, I mean, we can just provide you with examples after examples. You can see to my left-hand side, this statue, the nose has been hacked off. To my right-hand side, you can see exactly the same. The nose has been hacked off. Again, to my left-hand side, you can see another pharaoh. The nose again has been hacked off. And to my right-hand side, you can also see, 2 statues. They've hacked off both noses in a jealous rage. Here again, you can see 2 statues. If you look very closely, it looks as if they were actually trying to hack off the one on the left hand side. So they just gave up and basically hacked off the one on the right hand side. Because you can see quite clearly that the one on the right hand side, the nose has been remodeled. So they've made the nose look a bit pointed upwards. But this is not exactly how the nose looked like back then. This has actually been done intentionally by Egyptologists, because you can see on the left hand side, they're both the same statue, but one on the left hand side has actually the normal nose, which has been hacked up a little bit, and then on the right hand side you have bust with a pointed nose, which was fabricated by Egyptologists. You can see quite clearly the one on the left doesn't have a pointed nose, but the one on the right has a pointed nose. This is why they've been going for the noses, because once they go for the nose, then they can again remodel them and make them look pointed. But even then, with that, you still see that fraud has taken place, because it's quite obvious that no matter how they try and manipulate the noses, their features will always show that they are black, African, Asian Egyptians. So they can't stop it. It's impossible to stop. And also you can see another pharaoh. You can see statue to my left hand side. This is actually the son of aka Ramses II, whose real name is Anu Arare Imran Sheti. This is his son here to my left hand side, and this is another pharaoh from the 25th dynasty of Egypt on my right hand side. Like we said in one of our previous episodes, the 25th dynasty itself was also of fabrication as well, because Tasheti in Nubia, that civilization ended with many Okun's father, because many Okun came from the old kingdom to establish the new kingdom called the First Dynasty of Egypt. So the 25th Dynasty of Egypt was also a massive fabrication as well. It was a continuous rule from the First Dynasty of Egypt until when Alexander stepped foot on Egypt at the time. Can you see? So the entire ancient Egyptian dynasty is 100% black, 100% Yoruba, as the cartouche and the hieroglyph actually suggest. We've given you examples after examples after examples. So theories like the Assyrian and so on and so forth, the Hebrews and all this kind of rubbish were never in ancient Egypt. The entire story was fabricated from beginning to end, because they wanted to steal over 5,000 years of black African civilization. And just as a spoiler to because we always like to give you some brand new information for our channel. So just the left hand side, we have Olorun, aka Horus, on the left. And then to the right of the left, we have Ashe, aka Set. And in the middle, that is actually aka Ramses III. That is exactly how it looks like. And to the right hand side, this is the back of the actual statue. And you can see at the back of the statue is got his name. So his name is not actually Ramses III. His name translates in ancient Egyptian language as Anu, which means merciful, Arare, which means oneself. Then he uses many Okun. As you can see on the right hand side, you can see the Anubi sign. Looking to the left hand side, which stands for Anu, which means merciful. Then you can see the Are figure, which is used in conjunction with Ra, which means Arare. And then you can see the Me sign, which was first introduced by many. You can see the Ni sign, which was also introduced by many. And then you can see the bird feather, which means Okun, O-K-U-N, which stands for strength, ability, and power. So his name is not actually Ramses III. His name is Anu, which means merciful, Arare, which means oneself, Many, which means a man or established one, Okun, which means strength, ability, and power. So you can see quite clear in it. Look at the image. It's 100% black. It's 100% Yoruba, as the cartouche name suggests. You can also see to my left hand side, this is actually the same cartouche name of aka Ramses III. He's the second pharaoh of the 20th dynasty of Egypt, and his reign period was from 1185 BC to 1155 BC. So he's the second pharaoh of the 20th dynasty of Egypt, and that is his cartouche to my left hand side. You can see the Anu, which is looking to the left, ANU, which means merciful. You can see the Are figure, which is used in conjunction with Ra, which stands for Arare, which means oneself. And then at the bottom of the cartouche, you can see the the Me sign, which is like the comb sign. You can see the Ni, and then you can see the bird feather as well. So his name is Anu, which means merciful, Arare, which means oneself, Many, which means a man or established one, and then Okun, which means strength, ability, and power. And to my right hand side is his wrapped mummy inside his coffin, because inside his coffin, the third row inside his coffin is actually got his cartouche name written there as well. This is how we're able to identify that this is actually the wrapped mummy of aka Ramses III. You can see inside his inside that coffin is his cartouche name. And to my left hand side again is the same cartouche name of Ramses, aka Ramses III. His reign period, was from 1186 BC to 1155 BC. So he is the second pharaoh of the 20th dynasty of Egypt. And to my right hand side, this is just a zoom in of his coffin, because his cartouche is written inside his coffin, but I just wanted to zoom in so that you can actually see it. That third in the row reads Anu, Arare, Many, Okun. He's here for everybody to see. We have now come to the end of this episode. We're going to leave you with Osiri, aka Osiris, Isin, aka Isis, and Olorun, aka Horus. They're not myth, they are real pharaohs who actually existed, and real gods as well. So please put that in mind. They're not a myth, but they actually lived. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.